Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class with us today. Brad is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota at Genesis Communications Network. I'm Vincent Finelli. The call-in number, if you'd like to chat with us, is 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. And if you'd like to listen 24/7, 605-477-3249, 605-477-3249. Brad, thank you so much for engineering the broadcast. You do an outstanding job. Rich Sheben's with us. Welcome, Rich Scheben.
Well, thank you, Vincent Finelli, and I want to thank you yesterday for letting me exercise my First Amendment rights. I appreciate that.
My pleasure, and thank you for being with me and our class. Rich, I wrote a prayer, just like, normally I've never done this before. I've never written a prayer, but I decided that I would write one. I don't know what came over me, but I was chatting with Brad, and he was telling me that he was raised, as a devout Christian. I was raised in the Roman Catholic Church, of which I no longer feel a need to be there every week. As a matter of fact, I haven't been there in over a decade, actually more than that. And I believe God is everywhere, and I can talk to God without a broker or a salesman or an agent. I can talk to my God 24/7 whenever I feel like it, on the tractor, in my vehicle, whatever. And I just decided that I would write this prayer, and I'd like to have your comment, if you wouldn't mind. Here's the prayer. It's very simple. Lord, please consider blessing us with clarity of thought, the desire to ferret out the truth, and the determination to act with honesty and integrity in all that we do. That's it. Any comments?
Oh, okay. I was waiting for you to ask me. I didn't know if you were done.
Oh, yeah. No. No, Rich.
Have you ever heard me say I don't have a comment?
Not that I can remember.
Well, sometimes I'll say I don't have enough research and validity to delve into this subject and with entirety and give 100% clarification, because I don't. No one knows everything. So I have no problem saying I don't know, but I could always give my 2 cents, if you will. And I get
let me read it.
And we've talked about this privately as far as Christianity and religion a few times, and I'll go into my comment right now, and that is, I give a little prayer every night. I tell God to forgive my sins, which he pretty much starts laughing at that point because I have so many, and I tell him to show me that he's real. And I've had this conversation from an intellectual conversation with a lot of folks about religion. And, I see, so I've had business with a lot of people who are Christians that I say, trust me, and they're often the first people to financially screw you. I've seen the divorce rate being, depending on what you read, between 70 and 75%, and there's no difference between Christianity and the main populace. Excuse me. I've seen on television and not just in Hollywood, but in the Christian community, wives saying, this is my starter marriage. I've been hearing this for 20, 30 years. And the guy's in the background saying, oh, my God, I gave you my word of honor till death does us part. And then he gets kicked out of the house. You know, she gets the kids, she gets the house, and he gets all the bills, and she gets the pension and retirement. It's a joke. And then I see a lot of people who are super-duper Christians who kind of stick together, not that I'm saying they feel high and mighty, but they don't want to forgive other people for their indiscretions either. I see churches becoming 501c3 churches and care more about the amount of people there and running it like a corporation and the money end of it. I see politically correct versions of the Bible. I look at, you mentioned Catholicism. Holy smokes. Look at all the priests in Italy that had male escorts. Look at all the especially little boys and sometimes little girls being raped by these people. Not just priests, but cardinals as well. And this stuff is coming out to the public. I see abortions and people selling baby body parts to the highest bidder and putting them on a chopping block while they're alive and cutting their body parts out. I see Christians around the world being persecuted and killed, and Christians here basically doing nothing or saying nothing because they don't want to get involved. I mean, I can go on and on and on. This is why I hate the word hypocrisy and double standards. Why don't we have practice what you preach laws? This is one of the reasons I do these shows, folks, because not only do I live outside the box by living off-grid, but I want to give ideas and thoughts and ideas and solutions and suggestions and advice for living and thinking outside the box, because this whole system is so corrupt, and it protects the elite. It protects the people who don't even work and never earned a dime in their life. All they do is take, and then when they have their plans of actions fail, the little people have to bail them out because they're too big to fail and too big to jail. So we need outside-the-box thinking, but what we really need is the silent majority to speak up. We're all imperfect sinners. That's what makes us human. But we are not getting better. We're regressing. And what we have to do is, the first thing is stand for principle. And I'm going to try to give myself a pledge to define those three criteria very quickly every show I'm on. First is the same rules, laws, and accountability for everybody. The second is truth. And the third is, if someone has less consequences for their behavior because of what group they're from, then you get to do it too. And then that's when practice what you preach laws come in, because the people are going to say enough is enough. And these are the ideas and solutions that have to be implemented. See, this is why the powers that be are surveilling and censoring us. There was an article I read, I think it was on Drudge this morning, about how George Soros was caught basically going with big tech companies to censor and surveil not just the American people, but all the people in the West. Well, see, this is nothing to do with equality, fairness, tolerance, all these politically correct buzzwords. Accountability, democracy, humanity, diversity, tolerance, prosperity. All these words mean nothing. They've been hijacked by definition to use as weaponized tools to divide the American people and lower the bars of standards and expectations, especially for getting a job and keeping a job. These are recipes for a divide-and-conquer strategy. It foments hate, insults, degradation, and disrespect, and does everything but create synergy. And I feel if people read up, researched up, spoke up, and voted up, we still have the ability to change this corrupt system for the benefit of the little people. And that's what we do here on USAPrepares.com. We stick up for the little people. And those of you who are regular listeners know that I always talk about sticking up for the bottom 93% of the income earners, because these are the biggest group that has been used, that's been played. And we are allowing the powers that be to divide and conquer us based on what group we're in. Skin pigmentation, gender, race, religion, ideology, generation. I mean, you can't go to the mainstream media without seeing race baiting, sex baiting, religion baiting, ideology baiting. It's unbelievable, the group identity politics that they use. Now, people are waking up to this, but I'll tell you right now, we can change things together as a society if everybody stuck up for the little people, practice what we preached, didn't try to be angels, follow the 3 criteria standing for principle, and then let's actually practice what you preach laws. Let's create self-sufficiency preparedness schools. Let's talk about QE for the people. You know, the people who bailed out all the banks and insurance companies and everybody else, the too big to fails, too big to jails. We can make a difference if we all have the same voice. But don't let the powers that be divide us by all these different segments. We have to stick up together as the little people. Vince?
Yeah, I've got a couple comments. I don't think I'm going to be able to make both of them in the time that we have left in this segment, but let me try making one. You're talking about the church, and I got to tell you that when I look at the news and I see these articles about these priests and monks and religious men acting as predators in the past, I look for the names of some of my teachers. I really do. I go, I wonder if HB is on that list. HB was, who do you have for history? I was taught by the Jesuits class, and, who do you have for history? Well, HB. Well, HB was the name that we used for Brother William. Brother William, HB. HB was code for Homo Bill. Really was. So I keep looking to see if any of the teachers that I had in high school made the list. And I've got another comment when we come back about group identity politics and what I did. Okay, so this could be our last day on the air based on what I'm going to say next. So, in 1971, I graduated a Roman Catholic Jesuit-taught high school. And my grades were fine. I was not the valedictorian, but my grades were fine. And it was a college preparatory high school. So the idea was we're training the young men who attended, and it was only men who attended this school, to go to college. And I graduated and I applied to the same university that my dad graduated from. And it was a teaching college where you actually studied to become a teacher. And that's what I thought I wanted to do. So I had a letter of recommendation from one of my dad's buddies who visited the house a lot. He was the chair of the history department, and he wrote a letter of recommendation. My grades were fine. I went to a pretty good school. And my admission was not accepted. I was declined. I thought, wow, it's unbelievable. So I applied, to another school, a school that had a much higher ranking, a top 40 university in the United States, and I was accepted. Isn't that interesting? So I wasn't accepted in a small university, but I was accepted in a large university. And it kind of surprised me. And that summer I was pumping gas at a local gas station, and I was an air conditioning technician. So I got to meet a lot of people who would come in, have me fix their air conditioning systems, and a lot more people came in, and I pumped gas. And that was the days of the service station, where you could have your car serviced as well as get fuel for it. And this young man pulled in for gasoline, and I pumped his gas, and I looked in the back at the university sticker on his back window, and it was the same university that I had been rejected from. And so I asked him, how he did on the exam. He said, "What exam?" Well, the Scholastic Aptitude Test, how'd you do? Well, he didn't have to take it. He didn't have to do anything to get admission to this particular university that I was not admitted to. I was kind of surprised. And he didn't speak exactly the same way that I did. He didn't seem to know some of the things that I knew. And I was quite surprised. This young man was black. And nothing against blacks. These are just the facts. This is just what happened. So he was in, I was out. And so I went to this other university. And it was just fine. It was great. Graduated and decided to go for my master's degree. So in the years of 1976 to 1978, actually I only did 18 months. I went for my master's full time at night. I did a 5-year master's degree in 18 months. And every class that I attended in my master's degree, I was given one of these postcards, actually a large postcard, sized heavy stock paper, and it asked us, and I don't remember the exact title of this postcard, but it was a census of what race you were. And you could say that you were black. You could say that you were an Asian/island Pacificer. You could be an Alaskan native, and you could be of Spanish descent, and then you could be other. There was no selection for white, not one. Rich, have you ever seen these cards?
Yeah, a few times.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So this gets back to exactly what you were talking about with, if they can do it, you can do it. Okay. If you see somebody in a protectionist group that is that is getting bonuses, credits, and things that for just being who they are, and you don't, well, you can do what they did. Well, I thought, well, okay, so I'm going to circle black in every one of these cards, and the reason was exactly what you said. I was discriminated against for not being black. And I decided that I would just put black on all these cards. So this may be our last day. So it may appear that I'm picking on blacks. I'm not doing that at all. Let me tell you the rest of the story. So Mrs. Finelli is a degreed mathematician. She has her master's in business administration, an MBA. And she was a teacher, and she was a programmer. She programmed in COBOL, Fortran, RPG, and assembler languages. She was contacted by a headhunter back in the 1970s to work for a Fortune 100 company. She was already working for a Fortune 100 company, but she was offered a job by another Fortune 100 company because this headhunter found her. And she was hired to lead a programming group for a missile company. They launched missiles in space. And we found out later why. Because she's a female. Now, there were plenty of guys that could do the job, but there were very few gals that could do the job. Now, it's not that they gave her extra points because of what she knew, because the guys were as good as she was, but they were guys. So they actively found her because she wasn't a guy. Just like that she got extra points. We didn't know that at the time. We found out years later that's what happened. Just like that guy that got a seat at the university, at a teaching school, because he was a different color, and they needed more of his color and less of other colors. So it's absolutely true. Rich, what you've been saying is absolutely positively true, and Mrs. Finelli and I experienced it firsthand. Now, so I'm talking about like 1976, 77, 78. We're talking 42 years ago that we saw this. And 40 years ago, I decided that it wasn't fair. And I would just put that I was a different race from what I was because it wasn't fair. I worked hard to learn the things that I learned. And it bothered me. It bothered me that people were getting advantages unearned. It's kind of like you know, being in high school today, everybody gets a trophy. All you with a heartbeat. How many of you guys have a heartbeat? How many of you gals have a heartbeat? All right, good. Come on over. Here's your trophy. Am I wrong?
All right. You've unleashed me. Are
you saying I hit?
I'm going to comment.
Did I hit one?
Right. Okay. Well, I need airtime now, Vince, to mention some things that I haven't talked about in a little while, and that is my high jumper analogy and my NFL analogy in the book, which I know you enjoy. So I'm going to start with my high jumper analogy. What this is, folks, is just something that I made up off the cuff. It's a hypothetical situation, but let's say I was an employer, and I had a company that hired high jumpers, and my job was to hire these high jumpers who could jump the highest without tipping over the bar or lowering the bar, because that was the industry I was in. It's like a gidget industry. It's like it's a hypothetical situation, so work with me here. So here I am as an employer, and I have an opportunity, I have an opening for a new high jumper. Well, what I'm going to do, or what was done years ago, is I would put the bar at 6 feet high. Now, let's say there was 500 applications. Okay, I take my 500 applicants and I say, here's your first interview. Clear the bar at 6 feet. Well, out of 500, only 1% could do that. So my second interview for the next 5 people is based on other criteria. What is your diet like? How do you keep your weight down? What's your workout regimen like? How often do you do this and do that in reference to making your job better? Do you show up on time? Do you use objective facts in creating a workout regimen that's best for you in lieu of subjective emotional opinion in reference to just hearing what other people say that might not be common sense or logic? In other words, all my questioning for the second interview is based on hard work, effort, proven results, qualifications, word of honor, and one example I just gave is showing up to your job on time and meetings on time, things, criteria of that nature. So I would pick very quickly the best high jumper back in the day based on interviews and criteria, as I just mentioned. Well, today, it's totally different. Now, instead of having the bar at 6 feet for the first interview, I got to have the bar at 6 inches because it might hurt somebody's feelings. So instead of, with the 500 applicants I get, 99% of the people pass. So I'm interviewing 495 people, not with the questions that I was mentioning earlier back in the day, so to speak, but today my questions are based on mostly the interview process is based on the application. What is somebody's skin pigmentation shade? What is their gender? Now, that's a very confusing question because Mayor de Blasio in New York City says there's 51 genders. What is your sex or sexual orientation, religion, ideology? Do you have the ability to disrupt and distract and divide the people at work? Or do you have the ability to sway public opinion? Or do you have the ability to lower the bars of standards and expectations? Because hard work, effort, proven results, and qualifications no longer matter. So we're just all going through the motions, and what happens? What happens? We destroy America from within because we're rewarding mediocrity at its best. We've turned into the country of the law of diminishing returns. So opportunity, ingenuity, productivity, innovation, knowledge, everything that made us great, including our heritage, traditions, and culture, has now been thrown out the window with the baby in the bathwater. So all these opportunities and productivity and ingenuity and innovation is only available for the elite few. And while everybody is creating chaos and infighting between what skin pigmentation, gender, race, religion, ideology, etc. we're doing, the elite criminals get to pocket more money. They get to do things like stock buybacks. They get to do quantitative easing, where 95% of the money goes to the top 1 to 7%. The great majority of that money goes to the top 1 to 2%. They get to take their companies out of the country. They don't have to worry about the pension obligations or the debt obligations, because now they're globalists, and they've got houses and bomb shelters and everything else all over the world. So they don't even care about being an American, and that's what we have, in a nutshell. That's what we have. Basically, we have taken every group, these elite people have taken every group, insulted their work ethic, ability, and intelligence. They have degraded them and disrespected them for a divide-and-conquer strategy to create chaos and infighting. Now, I'm going to mention my NFL analogy. I'm going to kind of paraphrase it or read it pretty quick out of the book. I don't care if you buy the book, folks. It's a 5-year-old book. I have people who have ordered the book. Words have been rearranged, paragraphs have been deleted. I got books coming back to me where the introductory chapter, the first chapter, and the second chapter has been totally deleted. Can you imagine if you buy it electronic? Who knows what the heck you're getting? This is the censorship surveillance state that we live in, because the powers that be don't want synergy, and they don't want us, the people, waking up. They want you to be debt slaves for the rest of your life. So here's my NFL analogy in the book. Okay, so basically there's two teams. We're going to call one the Montana Average Joes. They only have average skills, but they work well together because they try hard and practice long hours. Remember, hard work, effort, proven results, and qualification. Let's say they were all middle-class, white male, heterosexuals with a Christian name. Let's say they never got a job, a college education, a house, or a down payment for a home from their daddy or their government. Let's say they all earned what little they had. Now let's call their opponents the San Francisco Excuses, just for the fun of it. Let's say this team was made up of people of different backgrounds and all qualify for victim group status. In other words, they had a certain skin pigmentation, sexual orientation, or were female. Now let's say they got together with the referees before the game and they said they were given protectionist status by our government. Some called their attorneys and sued more often than the Montana Average Joes. Some sued just when other players from around the league told a joke. Some sued because the Average Joes got an earlier promotion or a higher paycheck, even though the Average Joes were more qualified and produced better results. I can throw in thousands of examples, but you get the point. The football game then begins. Kickoffs are canceled. The ref says that the San Francisco Excuses gain immediate advantage because of their coveted status. The excuses, as per the referees, have only 50 yards for a touchdown to run, while the Montana Average Joes have to run 100 yards for a touchdown. The game continues, and despite the handicap, the Average Joe lose by only 3 points. And my question to you is, I'm going to mention these questions after the break, but I really want you to pay attention to what this has done to our country regarding the context of the questions I'm going to deliver after the break. Vince?
Rich Scheben, offgridmontana.com. This may be our last broadcast class. For now, Vin Finelli and Rich Scheben. So, Rich, you had a couple questions you were going to ask the class, right? Rhetorical questions.
And before I mention the questions, everybody, I want you to think about how the elite has poisoned us against ourselves. Now, I've given many numbers. I talked a lot of Economic 101, as you know, and I've given many numbers that prove the middle class demise, savings rate, credit collapsing, debt. I mean, I've talked about all this stuff till I'm blue in the face, and that's why I talk about ideas and solutions. But we got to talk about why this has happened and how the people are being used, because every narrative, every meme, theme, talking point is sanctioned by the powers that be. There's only 5 or 6 companies, and that includes production companies and publishing companies, that control every thought. We are really in a 1984 Twilight Zone episode. So here are the questions regarding the this NFL championship football game that I talked about. Question number 1, do you respect the San Francisco excuses for the win? 2, do you think this creates synergy with the fans, players, and owners? 3, do you think this makes our country better and stronger regarding work ethic and results? 4, do you think over time that people will continue to respect the game, the players, the rules, and the refs? 5, do you think any individual who plays by special rules, laws, and accountability just because of victim group status will be respected? And lastly, do you think the NFL would prosper or even survive like it has for the last several decades if we had different rules, laws, and accountability for different players and different teams? And this is what makes the NFL popular. Now, I realize it's been losing a lot of popularity, and it should be because of the disrespect for America that some of these players are doing. But what they've done, at least in the past, is they've chosen the best players with the highest qualifications, which puts out the best results. In this case, the results are about scoring, speed, coordination, desire, determination, athletic ability, and winning. Oops, shouldn't have said winning. It's probably politically incorrect these days. My bad. Little tongue-in-cheek there. But going back to the above questions, of course, the answer to all these questions is an obvious no. What has been happening in our country the past 40 years is a major lowering of the standards and the rigging of the game. When you continue to lower the bar to create an illusion of equality, you bring down the quality of life for the whole country. See, as the phenomenon occurs, the value of everything diminishes by the day, and the powers that be continue to lower the bars of standards, not for these politically correct buzzwords that you hear every day, like equality, fairness, tolerance, diversity, prosperity, inclusiveness, and I love democracy and humanity. They don't even come close to meeting what they are. They're lowering the bars of standards and expectations to create division, which our values gets more clouded. And when you look at what's happening to the middle class, everything, they call it the harmonizing of the economy, but it's ruined the middle class. It's ruined assimilation. It's ruined traditions and culture. It's ruining America. We are allowing the elite to control these narratives. And they're poisoning us against each other because we're not using the right criteria for getting a job. And when you lose value, when you lose appreciation, everything goes south. That includes forgiveness, that includes love, that includes everything. Everything gets destroyed. Vincent?
Well, I was just thinking, we're going to the top of the hour break. I wonder if we're going to be back for the second hour.
Well, this is why we've had millions of soldiers die for our freedoms and liberties. It's called the First Amendment.
Yeah, and you talked about the elite. I really like your term treasonous class. Treasonous class. That is my favorite expression to describe the elite. Treasonous class. We might be right back after top of the hour news and commercial announcements. We'll find out. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Are we on the air? Geez, so. I can't believe it.
Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3.
Hey, Brad, are we still on the air?
We're live, sir. We're live.
We made it. We made it through hour number 1. We'll see if we can totally submarine our broadcast on hour number 2. So, Rich, I was looking at some statistics. I went to the internet while you were talking during the last segment. And as of July 2016, white Americans are the racial majority. White Americans are the racial majority. African Americans are the second largest race. They are at 12.7%. The whites are the majority, 12.7% are black. Hispanic and Latinos amount to 17.8%. And it doesn't say anything about Asians in the United States. So then I went to what percentage, what's the racial percentage in the NBA, basketball, right? So according to what I read, in 2015, 74.4% of the players in the NBA are black. 23.3% are white. 1.8% are Latinos. And 0.2% are Asians. Now, why is that? Is it because the NBA is saying, I tell you what, we don't have enough white guys. We certainly don't have enough Latinos. And no question, we're really low on Asian players. Is that what they're doing? I mean, did somebody say that? Or did they say, what we need to do is have the best players that we can find to be in the NBA? I believe that they were looking for the best of the best of the best. And it just happens to be that the black players are the best that they could find. And then, at 74.4% and 23.3% were white. They couldn't find more white players that were as good as the black players. No question about it. And they could only find 1.8% Latinos and 0.2% Asian. And I believe that's because they were looking for talent, qualifications. Would you agree with that, Rich Scheben?
Absolutely. And if that NFL analogy held the same water that is done in the rest of society, nobody would be watching the NFL. That's why I asked those 6 questions at the end. And every time I've given this in a talk, on a radio show, the feedback I've had in Q&A afterwards, I've never had not one person anywhere in the world disagree with that. Not one. See, we are allowing the elite to hold on to the narratives for the purpose of divide and conquer. Vince?
Well, I can tell you that this lowering the bars and standards is really working, because I just got a call a few minutes ago from one of our neighbors. He has been trying to get his telephone line fixed so he can get the internet working, and he's been working on this for over a week now. And it's just, he can't seem to get his telephone line fixed. It's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And he told him that he thought that they were a telephone company, that they knew what they were doing. And so he just called me, and I said, is it fixed? He said, no. So they sent him some paperwork, and he's going to come over to the farmhouse because he's not sure exactly what they're even asking him. And he has one of these, warranties, so that his house wiring inside the house is warranted by the telephone company. They installed it years and years and years ago. And they said, I'll tell you what, we'll maintain it. You just pay us every month, and we'll give you a contract that we will come and fix your wiring if anything happens. So they put it in, and he can't even seem to get his lines fixed. So I'll let you know exactly what happens when he lets me know what's happened and why. But I've got the same lousy telephone company, CenturyLink. But Scheben, I was reading an article, and this is kind of upsetting to me. And the article starts out, and this is dailymail.co.uk. She was on fire from her knees to her hair. She was on fire from her knees to her hair. Girl, 12, is left with severe burns across half her body after taking part in the fire challenge. There's this YouTube fire challenge. Timaya, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right. Timaya, or Timaya, or Timiyah. It's spelled Timiyah. Timiyah. Landers, 12, set herself on fire at her home in Detroit on Friday. The girl and her 2 friends watched a YouTube video of others doing it. The trend began in 2014 and sees youngsters covering themselves in rubbing alcohol. Timaya, whatever her name is, mother and stepfather put her in the bathtub and tried to put out the flames. She's now in the hospital, breathing through a ventilator. So it goes on to say this 12-year-old girl has been left covered in burns after taking part in the fire challenge, a worrying YouTube trend which encourages teens to douse themselves in flammable liquid and set themselves alight. This young girl performed the challenge in front of her 2 friends at her house in Detroit, Michigan on Friday after her mother had made them pancakes. Within minutes of her mother leaving the girls alone, there was a loud explosion, and Tamaya, whatever her name is, engulfed in flames. If you've ever seen the movie The Mummy, wrapped from head to toe with just like the eyes being seen, that's what this girl looks like. She's on a ventilator. She's in the hospital room. I mean, she's in really, really serious condition. Okay. So she set herself on fire because YouTube allows those kinds of videos. Okay. Now, that's beyond free speech. That's dangerous. That's reckless. That's careless. That's injurious. Why? Why would anybody, first of all, set themselves on fire? Lack of education, ignorance of the facts is dangerous. Ignorance is expensive. And this girl, it's going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, in my estimation, for her care in the hospital. And she's going to be disfigured for the rest of her life, in my opinion. She's got burns over 49% of her body. Her face, her neck, chest, I think she's okay below the knees, I think, based on the picture I've seen. I mean, she set her house partially on fire. Now, we're doing stupid things in the United States. One is allowing this video on YouTube and videos like it. Another thing we're doing in the United States, it's unbelievable to me, is we're naming our children with ridiculous names. Now, think about this. When you are submitting your resume for that job, and your name is Lux, Luxx, or Banjo, Banjo, or Sketch, Sketch, or Sharpay, or Braxley, Braxlee. Let me give you some of these other names. Addison. Wow, you started it. Addison.
Can I jump in here?
No.
I just got to comment on what you said, okay? Regarding what YouTube is allowing. Because I touched on this earlier in the show, and I just want to mention a couple more sentences about it. The recent wave of censorship by conservative voices on the Internet by tech giants, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Apple, all these companies, mirrors a plan concocted by a coalition of George Soros-funded progressive groups to take back power in Washington from President Trump administration. These people don't want to eliminate objective facts, so little girls and stupid people can light themselves on fire and do all this thing. And they say George Soros wants to eliminate right-wing propaganda and fake news. And the CEO of what was it? I think it was Twitter said, "Oh yeah, we do lean left." Lean left is code word for I'm super wealthy and I'm going to keep you dumb and I'm going to keep you divided and we are going to basically shadow ban and eliminate news content, facts, and good information so that people can't better themselves. That's what when they say they lean left, that's what that means. It means it's plausible deniability to censor, surveil, and steal the people's money, where the little people no longer have restitution, protection under the law. It's gotten to the point where they allow people to see how they can burn themselves on YouTube and all these other distractions and stupid stuff, but they're eliminating free speech, which is in the Constitution, in the Bill of Rights. It's our law. This is where we have gotten. Thank you for letting me come in with a sidebar there, Vince, but I just had to mention that because this article is starting to show up. It's from WND, World News Daily, I believe.
Yeah.
Memo reveals Soros-funded social media censorship plan. So basically, they're getting caught doing what we all knew they were doing in the first place, and allowing these
Hold that thought.
poor little kids to do this stupid stuff.
Hold that thought. We're going into a break. Mark the Spark, if you could just hold on for just another few seconds. I just want to go through some of these names. Class, I think it's absolutely ridiculous that someone would name his or her child with these names. It just puts, I think it puts him at a disadvantage. You know, when this child becomes employed and the caller says, "I'm sorry, I didn't get your name," and the person says, "My name is Kyrese or Latoya or Lakeisha, Laquisha, or LA apostrophe capital Kisha, or Latanya, or Rohandra, or Bonkisha, or Shatanya, or Bonifa, or Shataniana, or, I mean, this is Monique, M-O apostrophe Nique. These Folandra, F-O apostrophe Landri. Bonkiki, B-O-N apostrophe Qui. Boy, I don't even know how to pronounce this one. I'll just spell it. First name, V apostrophe Lanta apostrophe L-A apostrophe M-A-N-A apostrophe M-A apostrophe N-I-S-H-A. First name. I think that wins the number of characters. Shanene, Tete, Daquandi, Latrice, L-A apostrophe T-R-I-C-E. Here's another one. I got to spell it. I can't pronounce it. K-A apostrophe L-I-K-A-T-I-F-R-I-A-N-I-Q-U-A. So this person's on the other end of the phone, and you go, "I'm sorry, I didn't get your name. Can you spell that, please?" Sure. K-A apostrophe L-I-K-A-T. I'm sorry, can you start over? Yeah, capital K-A, big K, little a, apostrophe, big L, I-K-A-T-I-F-R-I-A-N-I-Q-U-A. I can't pronounce it either. This is what we're doing. This is, to me, this is what a lack of SpongeBobisha is. I'm not kidding. SpongeBobisha. I think these are jokes. Anyway, it's out of control. Some of the names that we have named our children: Shyrese, Charisse, Chantel, Kyrene, Shantae, Eunice, Lakeisha, Deshawn, Shaniqua, DeAndre, Jamarcus, and Letitia. Just how about giving our children a chance in society? Mark the Spark in Pennsylvania. Welcome.
Hello, Vincent, and hello, Rich. And first of all, hello, Rich. I wanted to share before. By the way, Vince, you wonder where I was at. I've been really busy, and the thing is that I hadn't listened to your show in quite some time. I hadn't listened to any shows. I basically let it go and then came back to Press. So, and then I came to your show, and you guys are brilliant. So, remember, I nicknamed Captain John Great Aggregator, and I think I nicknamed you the Great Agitator. Or the Great, I nicknamed you the Great Aggravator. So I'm gonna nickname Rich the Great Agitator, because Rich, you bring some key points to this whole deal, and it's really brilliant.
So wait, let's go one more time. Mark the Spark. Rich is the Great what?
Agitator. Or you might be, but it might go back and forth between you. You're the aggravator, he's the agitator, but sometimes you're the, I don't know, it switch back and forth. But
okay.
Anyway,
please continue.
Okay, so in some ways, I feel, Vincent, that I'm like the canary in the coal mine, because I went through a lot of experiences. And by the way, I wanted to bring up to you, I discovered this a year and a half ago. I wrote it in an email briefly to you about I discovered I was adopted, so I didn't know anything about my family history. And it's important that we know about our history. It's important that we know about our heritage. And many, many families have been broken up many times, so, they've lost that. Many of them have lost that. And that's a great loss to me, in my mind. But anyway, I caught up with my...
Yeah, hold that thought. Hold that thought. We're going to a break, and please hold, and we'll be back on the other side with Mark the Spark. So, Jerrika, Jerrika, Joplin, Joplyn, Julissa, Julissa, Brooklyn, Brook, apostrophe, capital Lynn, out of control. Mark the Spark, please continue.
So, what I want to share with you, Vincent and Rich, is that when I was in school, I did very, very well in scholastics. I did well in all subjects. I went to a small country school there north of Springfield, and I liked history. I really liked history, especially ancient history. But what's interesting is that through the years, because I went there for quite a few years, from junior high on to high school through high school, that when the subject came up for the Civil War, I didn't want to talk about it. I would almost leave the room. I'd almost fight about it. And this happened through several years, learning about the Civil War. And I just thought it was the stupidest thing. And my fellow classmates, including my teachers, would say, well, what's going on? I said, I don't know. I just don't like it. And I had no reference in this life to know anything about the Civil War with my family. Turns out, a year and a half ago, I found out that my great-great-grandfather served in the Civil War out of Pennsylvania. That's interesting because I'm here in Pennsylvania. I have fewer than 10 people who are blood relatives in my life, okay? And I'm here in Philadelphia, which is close to where my great-great-grandfather was born, in Reading, Pennsylvania, 1843. 1863, he was mustered into the Civil War, and in his first battle, that was September 63, his first battle was May of 64, in the Battle of the Wilderness. Maybe you're familiar with that.
Yeah, we owned property right in the wilderness in Virginia, yes.
Okay, there you go. So the first day of the battle, and that was, by the way, that was a very formidable battle. It was Grant against Lee directly, and neither side prevailed, and we don't hear a lot about it in history because neither side won. But there was like about 180,000 guys collectively from both sides fighting against each other. First day of the battle, he was captured, taken prisoner. Where was he taken? Andersonville, Georgia, to the Andersonville prison, which many historians consider one of the worst, if not the worst, prison of the Civil War. 13,000 men died within weeks of entering those prison walls. And you ready for this? My great-great-grandfather went in approximately the middle to last of May, and he was there through the end of April. That was May of 64, through the end of April 65. He survived hell. 11 months in hell. Now, I encourage people to go. You can watch it on YouTube. There is a dramatic movie called Andersonville. It's 2 hours and 47 minutes long. I encourage people to watch it to see the conditions of that whole situation. So the thing is, now he fought for the North, and we were told in our modern history books, which are written by the government, that what the reason for the war was, and we also were told who won. We were told it was about slavery, and we were told that the North won. Well, here's my take on it. All of us lost. Both sides. We all lost. And we lost to what? The corporation. The corporation and the reestablishment of our whole government as a big money machine for a few, elite few, to control and manipulate the rest of us. And what are we left with today? Or is that not what we're facing? I mean, really? So, now as a recent example of now you'd think that would mean something, that my great-great-grandfather served on the side for slavery, against slavery, and he suffered, okay? But now we have the blacks who are descendants of these slaves, I guess. They accuse all of us white people of being slave owners at some point because they're being agitated to do that, to go against us. But and they're even asking for money for all their suffering. Oh, I say, what about the white people and their suffering? Okay, so now, most recently, by the way, I don't know if you guys ever rent a car, but I do not. I discourage you from renting from Hertz or from Dollar, Thrifty, rental car, Dollar or Thrifty or Hertz, because a year ago I went to work for for Hertz at the airport, okay? And from day one, it was all about customer service, serving the customer. From day one, I had a coworker who had it in for me, and I didn't know why. I turned the cheek many times. This guy kept harassing me, and then he threatened me. And he threatened me in front of a manager, okay, manager. And I was hired there. When I was hired by another veteran. I'm a Navy veteran. I was hired by a veteran who's a CB. And when we met, we hit it off right off the bat because we knew that we understood. There's an understanding with veterans. Most of them hold a high standard, okay? And I try to do my best to hold a high standard. So anyway, long and short, they turned it around. I brought it to the attention of management because I brought it to their attention before in a subtle way, but they weren't hearing it. Now, the manager, the guy that hired me was a Navy veteran, and he happened to be white. Okay. Well, it took me 6 weeks to get hired on because that's the process. And when I got fired, then his manager below him took over. Okay, who happens to be African American, well, literally an African American because he's from Mali. So it turns out that the managers on duty that witnessed this African American harass and threaten me repeatedly, they turned the whole thing around and said that I caused the whole thing. Okay, which precluded me from getting a 90-day bonus, a 90-day sign-on bonus of $1,000. A couple months later, they fired me because they said that they had a customer complaint. I applied for unemployment. I fought them. I fought it. I went to the appeal. I had to appeal it because they denied it. I appealed it, and I beat them. And now I have a racial discrimination suit pending, hopefully. With the Commission on Human Relations, if it's going to go anywhere. I don't know. It may not. But anyway, so racism is alive and well. And I should correct that. Maybe we should call it reverse racism because I've been told that, or we've come to the media promotes it like white people are racist, and it never happens the other way around. So there's something going on with that. Also, the deal with Starbucks. With the two guys going into Starbucks and standing there and not leaving, and they get both those guys ended up getting paid by the city and paid by Starbucks, and they both got a $50,000 a year job with the city. And this all it only took them 2 weeks to figure the whole thing out. I mean, it's amazing. That was a racial thing promoted by a corporation, Starbucks, and. So one other thing I want to report to you is that I was taking some classes through what they call the Veterans Effort Bound, which helps guys try to get back into learning some things. So, and that takes place in the University of Pennsylvania campus. Okay, University of Pennsylvania is an Ivy League school. When you walk through the University of Pennsylvania campus, nary do you see a white person. What you see are Chinese and Indians. Now, how does that happen? Chinese and Indians. So. Anyway, somebody's controlling.
Mark, are you saying American Indians,
no,
known as
Eastern
Native
Indian.
Americans,
Eastern
or are you talking
Indian.
about India? Okay.
India.
Just wanted to make sure we knew the distinction.
Right, and it's how does that happen? I mean, it's just my understanding is that there's a certain group that's controlling, that have infiltrated our government, have infiltrated the corporations, if not been in the early origins of all the corporations. And they've infiltrated our higher places of learning, and they're playing gatekeeper, and they're keeping certain people out, and they're letting others in, and they're appealing to these. I believe they're appealing to these other groups to be potential shock troops to take down our country, because these people, this certain group, are so small in number that they can't do it alone. They have to have comrades in their communistic takeover. And so anyway,
Mark, I want to make sure I understand.
Yeah.
I want to make sure I understand. You said Hertz, Dollar, and Thrifty car rental companies. Why should we not use their services? What is the specific reason?
Okay, well, two things. First of all, they promote a hostile work environment, and they also support racism toward. And by the way, I appealed that.
Reverse racism?
Reverse racism.
Uh-huh.
Okay, you want to call it? Yeah. And so what I did was I even appealed that to their company headquarters. Hertz bought Dollar and Thrifty a few years back, so they're under their umbrella. So I even appealed to the higher level of corporate management, and they did not investigate a thing. And they even have a policy against harassment and threats, and they didn't even acknowledge it. They didn't even, it was just ridiculous how they handled the whole thing. I couldn't believe it. I was here every day just to serve the customer, do a good job, serve the customer, and hopefully they'll come back. We'll all stay employed, and we'll give them good service, right? No, this company prefers political action and racism, reverse racism, and so I was really shocked because I always thought Hertz was one of the better companies, but then we hear whenever the Second Amendment stuff comes up, these corporations are standing in the wing, ready to go against the Second Amendment. So who's running these corporations? So
well, Hertz used as in one of their campaigns, O.J. Simpson, which many people I know are absolutely positively convinced that he murdered his wife.
Yeah,
Nicole Brown Simpson.
Right. Yeah. It's just the standards, like I mentioned before when I called in. The standards they're destroying our standards. They're destroying our distinctions of who we are as a free people and what the Constitution means, if anything. It's just, and then even down to changing the definition of words. So people are, we have to have compassion for our fellow countrymen because we've all been hoodwinked, and now people are being mesmerized by changing the meanings of things where things don't mean what we thought they did, and everybody had a general understanding what things mean, right? So what better way to conquer a people than to just totally take away their standards and their principles and destroy the distinctions of who they are. So I'll leave it at that.
Mark Spark, thank you very much. And you mentioned the wilderness, the Battle of the Wilderness. We had a property there, and it was a horrific battle. And from the property, we had a mini ball, 50 caliber mini ball that was used there, and we gave it to the people that we sold the property to. We thought that we need to pass it along with the property. Absolutely horrific. Rich Sheben's with us. So, class, last evening, Rich Sheben, yeah, I was walking one of our instructors out. He had stopped over to the farmhouse, yesterday afternoon, and we spent some time together. And as he was leaving, I walked him to his car, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to be at the meeting on Friday, the Laclede Electric Cooperative meeting, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you're going to be doing on stage." And I said, "Hey, maybe you can video it." And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "And if you do that, we can watch it and say, this is what it was like before the cops came." And he said, "I was with you the last time they called the cops on you." And so maybe, they may do that. I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do with me, because they're only giving me 2 minutes to talk about me, why I should be considered as a candidate. And I don't think 2 minutes is enough. I think all candidates should be given at least 5 minutes. All candidates, at least 5 minutes, to describe why the members, those who are voting for the board of directors, should consider voting for any of the candidates. But they won't do it. They won't do it. I got an email. I asked some questions about how long the members have been serving the board. And it is staggering. Let me tell you what it is. I'm bringing that up. Okay. So one director, here's my question that I asked to the CEO. How long has each current board member served in years? Okay. There's a guy named Lowrance. He's been on the board of directors for 46 years. 46. Another guy by the name of Cravens has been on the board for 19 years. Now, there's only 9 on the board. Okay. So the first guy, Lowrance, 46 years. Cravens, 19 years. Hoffman, 14 years. Nutter, Bishop, and Little, 9 years. 9 years. So I'm going to be running against Nutter. She's been on the board for nine years. Harris has been on for 7 years, Robbins for 6 years, and Jones for 3 years. That's staggering to me that someone has been on the board for 46 years and has been involved in all of the rate hikes, every one. Cravens, 19 years, involved in almost all of them. Huffman, almost all of them, 14 years. This is unbelievable. This is like the Senate. You know, you make a career out of being on the board of directors. Whatever happened to serving and then stepping aside and letting someone else serve? Whatever happened to that? Obviously, Lowrance has never heard of that. I would have to say he's greedy. Cravens. I'd have to say he's greedy. I've run against him twice. He beats me every time. But this time, I'm running against someone who's only been there for 9 years instead of 19 years. So I have a little bit better chance. We'll see how it goes. Rich, I can't believe it. I just can't believe how America has been taken over. Taken over. And the bottom 93, us, we are paying the price. We are absolutely paying the price.
Yeah, well, you look at what Mark was just saying. Basically, the corporate fascist system has an addiction to power, money, and control. They want to suppress facts, truth, independence, freedom, liberty, and justice for the little people. And I got to tell you, folks, freedom is not free, and it's not easy, and this is why we all need to participate. But we need to read up, research up, and speak up in that order. I mean, look at this article I have in front of me here. Hundreds of thousands of illegally registered to vote in Texas. John Tester, #1 recipient of lobbyist cash during 2008 election cycle. He's a Montana senator. Lobbyists and PACs and special interest groups, all these groups are not for the little people. They're to keep the status quo and the cash flow for the elite. That's it.
You're absolutely right. And it may take years for this to sink in, class. It's taken years for it to sink in for me. Rich Shealy, thanks so much for being with us. Above all, honesty and integrity.